is currently working with Educational Testing Services by writing test items for the practice middle school math test. At the state level, Dr. Hypolite has served on several mathematics content standards, PARC, and teacher preparation committees. Besides her professional service, Dr. Hypolite serves as president on the board of directors of Bayou Land Families Helping Families, a resource center to assist families with family members who have disabilities. She is active in service work in her church and in the community. Dr. Hypolite is a native of New Orleans, presently living in Thibodeau with her husband, Shelby Hypolite. Her hobbies include reading, gardening, and traveling. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hypolite.
Good morning. First of all, I really appreciate you coming this morning. Common Core standards have become the new woo word for our teachers. And so I'm going to try my best to take the ooh out of it and make it a little bit more comfortable. A lot of the things I'm going to say at the beginning of the presentation you've heard before. I just like to make sure that I kind of revamp some things in case some people have not been exposed to some of that information. But more importantly, I think that my ultimate goal is to make this whole process a little bit more comfortable for you. If I can do that by the end of this hour, then I'm happy. First of all, I've been teaching for 33 years. I look in the mirror and I'm like, no way. There is no way I'd survive 33 years. And I just recently retired from Nichols June 30th. And so my husband said, now what are you going to do? And I said, go back and teach. I don't know anything else. I don't know what to do on Saturday and Sunday. Except schoolwork. I mean, I've been doing it half of my life. So, in fact, and one of the things the lady said earlier is that right now I'm working on a math and science camp for my church. And so we're going to be starting that on Monday. And so for the last few days, I've been absolutely crazy trying to get activities together for people who haven't taught in about 50 years. And we had a meeting yesterday, and I'm trying to tell them, like, okay, the activities, you have to really challenge the kids. You can't just say, okay, the answer is okay. You're like, why? We can't do that anymore. So this has been fun because I've had a chance to actually teach people who haven't been in the teaching profession for quite a while and helping them to understand the reason why we have to do the activities in our camp next week a little bit differently than the way that they taught in the 60s and the 70s. And so this has been interesting. So hopefully today I'll be able to kind of convey that message to you. I promise I try not to bore you too much, but I really think that this is the beginning of a new day for us in Louisiana. It's been a really long journey. I began teaching when there were no standards, and I can remember my first day of school, the day before, my principal coming to me and he said, oh, you're going to be teaching 8th grade science. Of course, that was wonderful after having a 3rd grade student teaching experience. And I said, okay, and what do I do now? And he said, well, here's your book, and see you tomorrow. And I went home, and I'm like, my God, what did I get myself into? I must have been crazy to do this. And so I went home that evening, and I'm rushing through, like, what can I do with the kids tomorrow? And of course, I got the book the day before. And I went back the next day, and the kids were getting their book, and the book he gave me was not the edition that the children had. So my whole first evening was like, okay, dump that in the garbage. And so I learned how to work Plan B. I tell my students all the time, Plan B. You need to have a Plan B all the time. But the one thing I did learn is that kids were kids. And so when I went to the university level, I figured that, okay, I've left junior high. I don't have to worry about all those things anymore because these are college students and they know stuff already. And I don't have to talk about classroom management anymore. No. I found out they were 13 years old, just in bigger bodies. That's it. It's the same exact process. I still have to say, would you please let somebody else speak before you speak? Same process. So one thing I've learned through my career is that teaching is teaching, no matter what the age of the children. It's the same exact process. And so hopefully when we look at the Common Core, we kind of think about that the same exact way that, you know, kids are kids, and then we just have to realize. So I'm going to ask you for a minute to think about this problem. You're in a classroom with 40 people of varying heights. The teacher and instructor says you have to exchange papers, which we know is a no-no for marking. We know that, okay. For marking them. However, nobody's allowed to change papers with anyone that's shorter than themselves. So how many exchanges will you make? to make a mental image of a class of varying heights. Giving students the tools sometimes is just the key that they need to help them over that hump. And the answer is none. It's zero. Because, remember, if I can't have anybody that is shorter than me, then there's never going to be anybody that I can exchange with, correct? So the answer is zero. Think about it. Think about that image. Even if I'm the shortest person, I can't exchange papers because no one can be shorter than myself. So the answer is zero. Now, is that a typical problem? A typical, how many math teachers in here? Okay, few. Is that a typical math problem? Can we plug in? Y'all remember that word, plug in, the formula? Can we plug a formula in? No, we can't do that. And so, what the Common Core standards are asking us to do is provide situations for our students that you don't have a traditional format to solve the problem. I can't use a formula, A equal BH. I can't do that. Area, base time, I can't do that. That doesn't work there. So what we're looking for is a different way of approaching. Now, is it something that I might want to know in real life? Well, not really, okay? But can I apply it to another situation? Maybe. Okay? So the whole idea of the Common Core is to kind of think about approaching math from a different way, not just memorizing the formula, but helping our kids to think and process that information in a different way. So, my question, do we need the Common Core standards? Let's read this little cartoon. My favorite example, when I teach math methods, most of the students that I taught in math methods were people who were going to be elementary teachers. And I always use the example of the young lady, we were on vacation, and her husband was purchasing something, and let's say it was $19.02 or something like that. And he gave the young lady $20, and he said, oh, wait, I have the 2 cents. Hold on a minute. She said, don't mess with me today. I put that $20 in already, and I'm giving you the rest of this change that this computer says. And my husband looked at me, and I'm like, don't mess with her. He said, let me give you 98 cents of change. We'll use something with it, but don't mess with her. But the point was, she couldn't figure out, because the register had already said 98 cents and change, she couldn't figure out, oh, he's giving me 2 cents. I need to just give him $1. No, content so that we can use it somewhere else. And that's what the Common Core is trying to get us to understand. So, the implementation of our new standards, we're already in the process, beginning this school year. My pre-K friends are having heart attacks right now. But if you look at the standards, and we'll come back later and look at them and the transition. If you look at the standards, you're going to see that most of the standards that we have now are asking us to go more into depth with the content and not asking us to cover lots of topics like we were trying to do before. In the past, we were trying to cover everything in every grade. Now, we're having fewer GLEs that we will be addressing in every grade level. But the fact is now they're asking us to take it a step up. Not only address fewer GLEs, but do it in a more intense way than we were before. So when we look at those content standards in a minute, we're going to be looking at, okay, what's the difference and how would you approach it differently than what you're doing right now? Okay, what's different about it? So we'll come back to that in a minute. I am not technology savvy and Patrick is here to help me.
Oh.
Okay. Let me go back. So let's see if we can pull this up for a minute. It's going back. Okay, so it's doing something. Between my desk. Well, 20. Okay, so I want you to think for a minute. If I showed you the pi symbol, you remember the pi symbol? With a little hat with the two bars on it. What does that symbol mean to you? 3.14. Write that down somewhere on your paper. 3.14. Now, I want you to share with somebody what does 3.14 means. I say 3.14. Now, my math teacher's already thinking of it. Okay, now the other thing is, in order to leave this room, you have to do at least 3 groups. Okay, so first of all, what did you think about 3.14? Circles, okay? We all learned it has something to do with a circle. When you were in geometry class, probably your geometry teacher told you that it was related to a circle and you could plug it in, whatever you see that little symbol, you plug in 3.14, unless you really want to work hard, you put 22 over 7. Remember that? But I can remember that I sat in geometry class in a fog most of the time because I'm a very visual learner. The person who taught me geometry, as wonderful as he wrote the geometry book that I was using in high school, so he assumed because he wrote it, we knew it. And we didn't understand. And I kept asking him, like, what does that mean? You just plug it in. And like, why am I plugging it in? What does that have to do? I don't understand why. And he kept saying, Christine, stop asking all those questions. Okay. So I plugged it in. I passed geometry, but I still started, I'll pull a glass. Make sure I'm not getting old and crazy. And the glass, the diameter of this glass is 3. And their circumference is 9. So if I divided that, I would get what again? So what can you tell me about the diameter and the circumference of a circle? Is there a relationship? And what is that relationship? The diameter is about a third of the... So I have a math problem on my LEAP test. And my LEAP test says the circumference is 33. What is the diameter? Do I need to plug anything in? What do I need to remember? It's about. So if I look at my choices and I see something that's about a what? A third. There's the answer. So what you're trying to do is teach kids not how to memorize content. We don't want them to memorize content. What do we want them to be able to do? To think. That's what those Common Core standards are all about. Okay? And so it changes the way that you teach, doesn't it? It changes the way that you teach, because now you can't just plug in, put a formula on a board, and say, plug it in. Okay? So, where's my elementary people? Y'all are here. We're teaching kids how to add in elementary classes. We always show them nice, cute little pictures, and they will perform for us. I'm using the word wisely, perform. But if we move that in a different context, can they understand that it's not going to always be vertical or horizontal? Do they realize that? We have to show them the problems in lots of different contexts. But what the Common Core standards are saying, not just the abstract, the numerical value of that problem, but we have to give it to them in context with words. Let them think it 6 weeks, we had 19 on the ACT test. I'm like, yeah! Oh my God. You know? But it was just, it's not that he wasn't capable. It was that he was just freaking out about the letters and the numbers. And once we start taking the letters out and we put square everywhere, I had Pete, my husband was like, what are those pieces of paper all over the table? Leave that stuff alone. You got a plan here, okay? These were squares. We just tried. That's what we're talking about here. Let's look at this one. Not even in the GLE. So that tells you it's really what? New. Okay? Distinguish between defining attributes. Triangles are closed and three-sided versus non-defining attributes. Color orientation. Build and draw shapes to possess defining attributes. Whoa. Okay, so let's go. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
See, all my elementary teachers got that. Okay? One bite at a time, okay? One bite at a time. So, distinguish between defining attributes. How many primary teachers say, this is a square, it has, do you not do that? Right? A square has 4 sides, but it has 4 equal sides, okay? How is that different from a rectangle? It has 4 sides. I hear 2 sides are parallel to each other. Little kids don't have parallel in their vocabulary yet. Well, we're going to teach them that vocabulary because if they can learn a rap song that's for 5 minutes, they can learn the word parallel. Okay? They can learn parallel. So, the key to what the Common Core standards are, teach them the vocabulary, the correct mathematical terms. That is one of our mathematical practices that we're going to come to later. It says use the correct terminology. Use it from day 1, then they don't learn how to use the incorrect terminology. So we're going to use the word parallel in 1st grade and in kindergarten because they can understand that. They know what it means. Once you show it to them, they can even learn how to spell it. I promise you. Okay? So we have to have higher expectations of our kids. So what this is saying that I want them to know this is a closed figure and this is the attributes of this closed figure. But if I have this wavy, shapy thing and nothing is connected, then it's non-closed, right? I want them to know that. That's all that's saying. Can they determine the difference between the two? Then the clicker, the last part though, says do what? And then number, operations, and fractions. You notice that we don't do fractions in 6 through 8. We're not getting into that fraction of parts and identifying a fraction. You're not doing that in 6th through 8th grade. What you see us moving to in 6th through 8th grade is more understanding of true algebra expressions, even one-step equations in 6th through 8th grade. So we're moving more to the algebra than the arithmetic. Does that make sense? Okay. And so as we progress, you notice the 6th through 8th, we're middle school teachers. Middle school teachers, you guys, you are hoping that K through 5 did their job really well. Because the one thing about the Common Core state standards, every teacher is accountable. Because you don't have the same content being repeated over and over and over and over again. It's a spiraling effect. We start small and we keep doing what? Getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that means the person that's down here, my kindergarten teachers, you guys have to do a very good job of getting those kids to count to 100 in kindergarten. And getting them to understand what is 1 plus 1 in kindergarten now. Because that means when they get to 6th to 8th grade, those guys are doing something completely different. They can't spend time on how to add anymore. Their responsibility has shifted a little bit. So if you look at the standards, that WestDad document that I showed you earlier, I would suggest any teacher to go to that document and let that be a part of your planning. It's called the Content Standards Comparison Chart. I think it's the best thing that ever happened because it truly helps you understand what GLEs are you teaching, when are they going to, and what has changed about those GLEs. So those content comparison charts are the thing that helps you to understand what's making this so different than what we had before, okay? But this little chart gives you an idea that how we're progressing. All right, let's move on. So, we're trying to create a different image. So here's my pie. We did that a little bit, okay? We did that already because we ran out of technology. All right, so here's what we're thinking about. What are you learning when we're in the classroom? As a teacher, you're thinking about what are you learning? This is what you want the kids to know. I know that in your school system they tell you write your objective and you're on the board and you write it in student terms. I can write in some of your school systems. It's not written like a regular behavioral objective. It's written in student terms. I can do whatever. Whatever the format, your school, we always put this on the board somewhere for the kids to see the objective. I understand that. I don't know how many of them read it, but we know it's up there, okay? That's not the point. When we're teaching kids, do they know what they're learning? When they walk out the door, and this is the way I always think about when I'm teaching something. When you walk out that door, do you have something in your backpack that you didn't come in here with? And do you remember what it is? In other words, do you just pack it in there and didn't know what it is? You know how your mom used to pack your lunch and you didn't know what was in it till you got there? No. Do you know what we learned today? And can you explain it to someone else? Because that's what the Common Core standards are saying now. Not just because I understand the knowledge, but if I have to, which I will, can I explain that content to someone else? Can I tell somebody else what I learned today? So, what are you learning? They have to understand that. Why are you learning it? High school teachers go through this all the time. What I gotta know this? What I gotta do that for? What I ain't gonna never use algebra a day in my life. You know what? I have to do that. but do they know how to use them? And so most of my students will say, is it on the internet? And I said, probably. But you know, the internet is not God. There's not a person out there dumping stuff into your computer. There's actually a human being that's entering that information into the internet. It may not be accurate. It may not be accurate. So when we talk about using informational text, are you using multiple resources to make sure that it's accurate as it possibly can be? Just because it's on the internet, it's not a fact. You know, we can't use how many planets in the solar system?
8.
There's no longer 9. Pluto's gone. Okay, so there's 8 now. So you're teaching a class and you know, and you still saying 9 planets. There's something wrong with that situation. So teaching our kids to, yes, technology is there for you, but it's a tool. It is not your brain. It is not your brain. It does not take the place of you. So our Common Core State Standard says we need to use technology in our teaching. I agree. I do use technology, but I always make sure that there's a point where this is not a part of the lesson. I want the students to always think, and that's what they're saying here. You know, do you know how to open a book? Okay. Even if you download it on your Kindle, okay. Do you know how to find something in your book? You know, if I needed to know what is the formula for circumference of a circle, do I know how to find an area? Do I know how to find that information? That's what they're talking about here. And then the last one, this is for the people who are not reading teachers. Who's saying, I don't have to worry about reading, I don't teach reading. I don't have to worry about ELA. I don't teach ELA. The new standard says what? Everybody. Everybody. And my question is, do you learn how to spell only for spelling tests? Okay? So everybody becomes a literacy teacher. So even if I'm the math teacher and I have kids write, we talk about those constructed response questions, right? Even if I have students write, should I look at, even if I don't want to count all points for that part of the spelling, grammar, should I even address it as a teacher? Yes. Everybody should. So all of us are literacy teachers, and that's what this particular part of that standard that has changed a little bit. Now let's look at the math ones. What's changed in the math? First thing and foremost, of course, is the Common Core math standards are still there, but now it demands deeper knowledge of the content. Notice who they focus on in that fourth bullet. Who is it? Elementary teachers. Elementary teachers. So, for elementary teachers, say, I'm going to teach second grade. That's all I need to know. Well, guess what? You got to know more than second grade math, okay? Because, remember, you are teaching for mastery every year. Every year, mastery. I want the kids to master. Now, I am not naive enough to think that every kid in your class is going to master at that grade level. I know that's not going to happen, okay? But the fact is, that should be our goal for mastery. So, what does that mean for you? You not only should know what your kids should know in second grade, but as an elementary teacher, you should have a clear picture of what the long-term goal is for high school. That's what that's saying. And so, should you know some algebra in second grade? Yes. context. Good, okay, so I can change it and put it in word form and in context, and I'll show you that in a minute. What else could I do to that question? Okay, change it and put it into a real world connection. Good, all right, what else could I do? Suppose I want to make it into a constructed response question. How could I change it? Remember that, remember your standard. What does it say? Interpret the remainder. So how could I change that to include that component?
You're doing measurements or something, ask them what the extra 3 inches would be.
Good, all right. So, okay, you're doing measurements, you come up with 3 extra inches, what does that mean? You can't just say, oh, I got 3 extra inches, I'm just going to hang them over there in left field. What does that mean? So, you can ask the question for them, you can have them solve it, and then say, interpret, or explain the remainder, or whatever you want to do. But that part needs to be included. That's the difference. So, kind of look at this a little bit. So, this is the problem in context. How many vans will you need to take 48 people to the park if 10 people can ride in the van? So I'm going to have how many people left? I'm going to have 8 people left. What am I going to do? Leave them there? You know, what does that 8 mean? Okay, it means that, whoop, maybe I need to get another van. So it's asking the students to take it up a notch. Okay, that's what it's saying. Take it up a notch. Okay. So, as we teach our content standards, there's also mathematical practices. These are things that are not content related, but more behavior related. Does that make sense? Okay? They're not content related. So that means no matter what content I'm teaching, these mathematical practices are connected to it. So if you want to think about it visually, think about the mathematical practices are up here. There are 8 of them. And if I'm teaching number and operations, I should be using all 8 of them in there. If I'm teaching geometry, I should be using all 8 practices, and the word is practices. So it's behaviors that you want the students to use as they go through their content topics. So it's a habit, and we're looking for proficiency. So I'm going to move on. So there are 4 spaceships. Each spaceship has 4 dirtles. There are 16 dirtles altogether. That's our problem. What do you think? That's an easy one. Is that a problem? No question there. Good job. There's no question. So how can I make that into a common core situation? What can I ask the students to do? Illustrate. Create a know, decimals are only used for money, and so it's got to be 0.44. So she had an argument. I don't know how viable it was, but she had an argument in her mind. And remember, we said, you notice I said earlier, use multiple formats of presenting something. Perhaps when she was taught decimals, it was taught with money. Okay? And so in her mind, that's the way it was. All right, number 4, this is an easy one. Just model fractions of the easiest concepts to teach with models, and I don't know why we don't do enough of it. Okay? I love this. When use the correct tools, you know, he says, you have to solve this problem by yourself. You can't call for tech support. That's not the tool. You know, do they know when to use a ruler? Do they know how to use it from the beginning point to the end? Do they know how to use a protractor correctly? Do they know how to use the correct formula in the correct place? You know, we assume, you know, I remember as a child, you know, I never learned how to read a ruler in school. My dad taught me how to read a ruler because I guess my 2nd grade teacher thought my 1st grade teacher did it, my 3rd grade teacher thought my 2nd grade teacher did it, and I went all through elementary school, and I keep telling my dad, I said, it's 4 in little lines, and he's like, 4 in little lines? What are you talking about? And that's exactly the way I understood it. 4 in little lines. I didn't know they meant fractional parts of an inch. And I used to say 4 in 2 little lines, and 3 in, you know, and he's like, what is the little line part? And I didn't understand it. And so, finally he's like, those are fractions, like 8, 16ths, 32nd, you know, those are fractions. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. And so, helping them to understand how to use the correct tools. Attend to precision. You know, go back, check your answers. Make sure you're accurate in the way that you're solving the problem. I love it. Okay, he said, blow it up halfway. All right. Look for and make use of the structure. And he says, you just adore a minute. Yesterday he said x was equal to 2. Making sure they see multiple ways of that problem. Multiple ways of the problem. And how many kids think that way? Yeah. All right, and then remember, look for and express regularity. And so oftentimes I ask students, when we talk about regularity in the problem, I'm not talking about in just this problem, use what you had before and bring it to this lesson. You know, what did we do before that would help you with solving this problem today? Does it make sense to you? Do you see some pattern occurring here? Because if we don't help them to guide them to that problem or to that focus, they're not going to always get there by themselves. So we kind of give them a little nudge every now and then. But I want kids, when I say, do you see a pattern here? And they're like, yeah, but there's a problem here. There's a little issue, you know, with that 70 and that 68 or whatever. Why is it a problem? You know, tell me what's wrong with this particular situation. And my students always say, why do you want us to think so hard? Okay, so what does this mean, all of this mean for you as a teacher? The nature of the task that is used in the classroom will impact the student learning. Whatever task you use, if you use them as they come in the curriculum materials, and you don't modify them for your class or for your kids or for your teaching style, you have to keep that in mind too. You have a teaching style. My teaching style is, my kids said I have stories. I said I have 33 years of stories. I got bunches of stories. But the fact is that, you know, what particular teaching style are you going to use in your classroom? Does it complement your kids? You know, if I'm a lecturer today, you got problems. Because our kids today are techie savvy and they want immediate gratification. And so if you're a person that just talk, and you don't get the kids to engage in the lesson, you're going to lose them. Those are some things that I have to think about. Hands-on kinds of learning. And when I say hands-on, I don't think you have to go buy millions of dollars of manipulatives. That's not true. I have more Coke bottles, bottle toppers, all of those things that I used in my class. But the fact is that I always wanted my students to understand that it's something that is just natural. If I brought it from home here, you can see how it's a real-world application in the classroom. high school. You know, our kids today are learning things that we learned in statistics class in college, in high school. So the shift is changing to more intense content in the higher grades. Less algebraic patterns, as when we used to do like the AB pattern and the ABC pattern in elementary school. Now we're talking about algebraic thinking. What does that mean? You know, let's interpret this equation. Not just can you create a pattern with little pictures anymore. That's not K through 5 anymore, okay? Functions in 8th grade. Where's any 8th grade teachers in here? Junior high, middle school teachers? No, okay, they're all probably functions. Oh boy. Functions are easy, right? It's just input and output, basically. How can I make that realistic? You got to put something in and get something out. You know, it's easy. What we did in our class, we used to make the function robot with little slips of paper and put them in and put them out. Kids finally got the idea what I said, in and out. More focus on ratio and proportions beginning in 6th grade and percents in 6th and 7th grade. That means we're letting those K through 5 people learn their multiplication facts, their basic operations. So when they get to this part, they're going to know it. All right, moving on. So what does that mean for us? More emphasis on context and word problems throughout. Multi-step word problems in the 2nd grade. Instead of waiting until they get to 4th and 5th grade saying that they can't read. Yes, they can in 2nd grade. So 2nd grade teachers are going to be responsible for more word problems in their grade levels. And then more conceptual understanding in high school. And for you guys, that means changing the way we teach. Absolutely making more sense of the algorithms, of the content, using more conceptual understanding than just memorizing formulas. You know, pages and pages of formulas and don't know when to use them. Okay? If you read the Common Core standards, you're going to see these two models repeatedly used. Number lines and area models. I don't think that in the K through 5 there isn't a section that doesn't have number lines or area models. And how many of you ever saw the model drawing, like the Singapore math kind of stuff before? Okay. And model drawing is really easy. You use like a geometric shape, and that sets up the equation. And you're going to see more and more of that. And I'm hoping that the school systems will probably do a lot of workshops with model drawing. It's once the kids get it, they can do anything. I mean, they soar once they understand model drawing. And so that's what the Common Core is asking more of. More use of the number line. And lastly, fractions, using a unit fraction approach, which is reasoning. All right, so here we go, the last one. Here's our techie student. Okay. One of the things we have to do is give kids time to think about problems. You know, I love it when we say, I want you to think creatively, but I want you to do it in 5 seconds. That's a little hard to do, okay? We want kids to think, we got to give them time to think. And then lastly, I love this one. I had a student that came up to me, I taught in junior high, and he said, you know, I taught social studies that semester, and I had a class, and all of you who are teaching can understand this. I had the class, the principal said, the computer put all of these students in one class. They were all repeaters in 7th grade, and it was all boys, okay? And this class was like, woo! And the day I saw them, I said, this is crazy. You know, there's no way, what I'm going to do with these kids. So I told them, I said, you know what? If you all don't get in any trouble, you don't curse out any teachers for a whole semester, okay?